NBC News correspondent Sam Brock was inside that courtroom in Lower Manhattan during the proceeding. Here in studio with us, NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter and NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris. Sam, I'll start with you. No cameras were allowed in that court, but you saw it all. What happened inside?
So first, Kate, just an incredible switch here from a man in shackles in Nicolás Maduro, who was taken out of that helicopter 72 to 96 hours earlier. He was living in the presidential palace in Caracas. Earlier today, right around noon, 4 U.S. Marshals brought Maduro into the courtroom along with his wife, and it was fairly incredible. This is the guy who was giving thumbs up to the DEA agents and saying Happy New Year. He walked into the courtroom, Kate, and he sort of nodded. He nodded to the people in the jury box. He nodded to the prosecutors. He nodded to the defense attorneys, even to the people seated in the gallery from the public, and then walked over and shook hands with all of his defense attorneys, sat down. This became even more bizarre, at least atypical of what an arraignment would normally constitute, when the judge asked him, "Are you Nicolás Maduro?" And he proceeded to say, "Not only am I Nicolás Maduro," and I'm going to quote him directly, "the constitutional president of the Republic of Venezuela, taken against my will." He used the word secuestrado. In a military operation by the government of the United States, I am a prisoner of war. I avail myself of the rights under the Geneva Convention. All of this, Kate, was coming out within about 5 minutes of Maduro entering the courtroom. The judge stopped him and said, hang on. Are you Nicolás Maduro? He confirmed that he was. Later, he pleaded not guilty to the 4 counts that he's facing, including narco-terrorism. The same was true of Celia Flores, his wife. She was also there. She pleaded not guilty. What's notable about Flores is the fact that when she came in, you could see something was on her face, but it wasn't quite clear until her attorneys later spoke up and said that she had been injured in their detention. And you saw that it was bandages over her face, bruising around her eyes. Right? So you have the visual of Flores injured and Mr. Maduro effectively holding court in court, if you will. I mean, he had this affability and sense that he was almost like presiding over the proceedings himself as much as the judge was. He was going back and forth with the judge. He interrupted the interpreter the entire time, Kate. He's got headphones on so the translator can explain what's going on and try to relate to the court what he's saying. That was interrupted constantly amidst this drama. And I would just add, as the proceeding ended, a man stood up. Maduro actually waved to the people in the gallery, and a man stood up, unclear who he was waving to specifically, but said, "You will pay." And Maduro said, "In God's eyes, I will be free." So it was a lot to process over the course of just a 30-minute hearing, Kate.
Sam Brock, appreciate all of that. Tom, can you walk us through the prosecution's case here, how they put it together?
Well, you're looking at images there of the Wall Street heliport when Maduro arrived in New York City this morning for the hearing, and you would notice that all of the uniforms that the heavy weapons teams are that are surrounding him are DEA, and that's who put this case together the last 10 years. Frank Tarantino, who runs the New York office right next on the president's left there. Look, when you look at this case, they effectively looked at it as an organized crime case. And so they said, who is benefiting from this ability to get drugs from Colombia, from other parts of South America, through Venezuela and out, and who's enabling it? And what they've effectively charged here is that Venezuela's leader, well, up until 48 hours ago, Nicolás Maduro, was the one who is overseeing that in the form of allowing all sorts of corrupt activities to take place underneath him, at times engaging in those corrupt activities, which ultimately led to murder, weapons charges, other things, in order to facilitate this drug trade. And that's why they built this case on him. He was indicted, we should note, initially 5 years ago.
Misty, let me bring you in. Some legal experts are saying the capture of Maduro violated international law. You heard him basically suggest that himself in court. What does the law say?
So as far as international law, what the argument is that entering a sovereign nation and removing its leader violates principles of the United Nations. There would have to be approval outside of very, very narrow circumstances like self-defense, which it's argued does not exist here. And so therefore, there's a violation of international law, as well as that as president, he would enjoy sovereign immunity, meaning he cannot be arrested for enacting his duties in that role.
What about domestic law? What about U.S. law?
Yeah, so, and this is how it all, it's all a bit different the way it will be handled in a United States court. There is a whole line of case law that says even if someone is removed forcibly from foreign soil and there is a violation of international law, that does not divest a U.S. court of jurisdiction. And so if there is a crime committed and there is an operation to get a fugitive for a law enforcement purpose and bring them here to face justice in a U.S. court for crimes they committed relating to the United States, that they will still be appearing before that court. It will not toss out the indictment.
All right, Misty Marris, Tom Winter, Sam Brock, thanks to you all.